A 3-year-old, new to his Sunday school class, just finished singing, "Jesus Loves Me." Since he was kind of new, he didn't know exactly what to expect. So he went up to his Sunday school teacher after they had finished singing, and he said, "Is Jesus here?" The Sunday school teacher looked around, and she said, "Yes, Jesus is here." She didn't quite know whether to say, "Yes, Jesus is here," or perhaps, "Yes, we feel that Jesus is here." She was running this around in her mind when he asked her again, "Is Jesus here? Because I can't see his feet." Feet. I love it. When you're 3 and you're about this high, I'm guessing that the way you look for a grown-up is to find the feet. Ah, yes. These are the things that are close to your vision. And if you want to spot the most important grown-up in your life, you look for the feet. Well, maybe it isn't just 3-year-olds that are interested in looking for feet. In fact, we'll notice in our passage today that I will read to you from the Gospel of Matthew that the 2 women who were waiting at the tomb, after they heard the announcement of the angel, and they were told to run back and tell the disciples that Jesus wasn't there, they ran right into Jesus. And you know what the first thing they did was? They grabbed his feet. Listen with me to this wonderful story of the resurrection of Jesus in Matthew chapter 28. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord, descending from heaven, came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, "Don't be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed, he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you." So they left the tomb quickly and with fear and great joy and ran to tell the disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came up to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Matthew's story of the resurrection is easily the most dramatic of the 4 stories of the resurrection we find in the Gospels. It starts out fairly quietly because in Matthew's story we find that there had been a lot of commotion before Jesus died and a lot of concern that he might rise from the dead. So after he was placed in the tomb, there was a big stone that was rolled in front of the tomb so nobody could get in or get out. And there were guards posted there as well to make sure nothing would happen. So the women who came on Easter morning, they weren't coming to anoint the body because they knew they couldn't get into the tomb to do that. They were just there to mourn quietly. And into that silent scene, all heaven breaks loose. There's an earthquake, and then suddenly an angel appears and addresses the woman. She rolls the stone away, and she sits on top of it. I love that image. You have it on the front of your bulletin. And she tells them he's not here. She even invited them to peer into the tomb to make sure that they could see for themselves that Jesus wasn't there. And then she told them to hurry and go tell his disciples that he has gone on to Galilee, and that's where they will find him. So they did. Of course, they were overjoyed, and they began to take off away from the tomb, and as they went, they ran right into Jesus, just like that. He was there. They recognized him right away. And when they saw who he was, they grabbed on to his feet. That word for seizing or grabbing on is a Greek word that's used only twice in the Gospel of Matthew. The other time it's used, it's when the guards seize Jesus to take him to trial. This grabbing on is a very interesting visual image, don't you think? Even this morning when I was visiting with some of you, I saw it happen right here in our church. I would talk to some adults and there would be children with them, and when they saw a strange face like mine, they would run up and grab on to the leg of their father and hold on. We see this all the time. And so when we imagine this moment when the women are leaving the tomb, it's easy to imagine them seeing Jesus and grabbing onto him and wanting to keep him there. After all, he had dragged them all the way to Jerusalem. He had gotten himself killed, put in a tomb, and now he was out. Why couldn't they just hang around there for a while? Enjoy. They wanted him to stay put. You know, I do too. Every single Easter I go through this. I want Jesus pinned down in front of the tomb, and I want him right there where I can find him, and he's gone off somewhere to Galilee to be with his disciples or somewhere else. He has escaped my view, and all the wonder, love, and praise that I always want to express to Jesus on Easter morning, I'm looking around. Where is he? He's supposed to be here, and he's not. That's part of the mystery of the resurrection. So I'm going to ask you to consider a question today. If we believed in the resurrection, how would our lives and world be different? If we believed in the resurrection, how would our lives and world be different? Well, for starters, if we believed fully and entirely with every fiber of our being in the resurrection, we would understand that death was gone from our world. Hard to imagine, but we would understand that God was victorious over death, that God was sovereign. Resurrection is the evidence of God's true sovereignty over all. God is not some little local deity ruling over a graveyard. If God were that, God would be ruling under death, not over it. If we truly believed in the resurrection, we would understand that God has conquered death. You know, it's kind of hard to imagine that, isn't it? Try to imagine a body that doesn't deteriorate, a world that doesn't lose species, a world that doesn't threaten the lives of many of its people, a place where there is no death, a place where death itself has been left behind. That's what we would understand and fully embrace if we really believed in the resurrection. You see, death has a hold on us that we don't even understand most of the time. Death is the reason why we grasp and we grab and we clutch. The reason why the two women grasped his feet and wanted to pin him down is because they didn't want him to die again. They found him and they wanted to keep him there with them. Death is the reason why we hold on so tightly to our possessions and we build our estates and we keep our positions very, very close to our hearts, as if we lost those things, we would lose our very self. And yet, if death were no more, what would we have to lose? None of that would really matter, right? Death would be gone. You see, death is a trump card that all the powers that be in our world use to keep the little people in check. Death is the reason why you buy insurance. Death is the reason why you probably don't speak out about things sometimes when you would like to. Death is what is behind our fear to live fully, to love fully, to let our possessions go and to give ourselves away. When death is in the picture, it's really hard to do that. If we really believed in the resurrection, the powers that be would not be the powers that be. In Jesus' day, the powers that be were the Roman government and the chief priest, and the combination of those two had a way of keeping everybody under their thumb. You know, they were so worried about resurrection, they didn't even want a rumor of it to get out of that tomb, much less the risen Lord. Why do you think they took a great big stone and rolled it in front of that tomb? And then posted 2 Roman guards there to make sure nobody snuck in, stole his body out of there, and started a rumor that he had been raised from the dead. They couldn't take that chance. No siree. They were going to make sure that didn't happen. And yet, it did. And what does that mean to us? Well, in the days of Jesus, what it meant was the little people, the poor people, did not have to be afraid anymore. They could speak out. They could take risks. They could even speak out against the Roman government. They could risk everything for God's kingdom instead of worry about what Caesar's kingdom was going to do to them the next day. I'm telling you, those people in that day could have none of that. Not the Roman Empire, no siree. That was not going to happen. And resurrection, even in our day, is risky stuff. It is threatening. I just finished a book called Threatened by the Resurrection. It was written by Julia Esquivel. She's a woman who spent over 30 years in Guatemala and the past 40 years. Now, Guatemala, as some of you probably know, has been full of strife for all those years. There have been a series of dictators that have come into Guatemala and they have wiped out whole races of indigenous people. Whole races are gone. Whole villages are gone. And Julia Esquivel has been there through it all. And she talks in her poetry about all the thousands and thousands of people who died. And this is what she says about them, about those who died. She says, they're more alive than they ever were before. They have threatened us with a resurrection because they will not die. They rise in our dreams. They pick us up when we stumble. They fill us with hope when we are in despair. They are always there. They are a whirlwind that keeps us awake at night. Their voices are in our hearts. They fertilize our struggle. They are the reason why, sleeping, we keep watch, and waking, we dream. Threatened by the resurrection. You see, resurrection life, the life that began when Jesus was raised from the dead, a life that has always been available through God, isn't life as we know it, going on and on and on and on to infinity. It's something really quite different than that. And it also doesn't mean that we get to go to heaven when we die. It's oh so much more than that. Resurrection life means that death will not have the final word. That God has raised Jesus from the dead, and you don't have to spend all your time fighting an ongoing and endless battle against death, trying to squeeze every bit of meaning and joy and satisfaction out of your diminishing lifespan. You don't have to do that. And even if you decided to do that, you know that in the end, death would still win. Death would utter its icy no. Because God raised Jesus from the dead on the day that mortality reaches the threshold of your experience, and death is hovering over your grave, resurrection life will be there too. And you will not hear that icy no as the final word. You will hear the glorious and incomprehensible yes from God. So today, it's Easter. What a wonderful day, isn't it? Let's cling to Jesus' feet for today. It's a good day to hang on, to feel His presence, to remember that He rose from the dead. Because tomorrow, when you go back to whatever Galilee that you face, and we all have them, as you know, you can remember that Jesus is going with you, that He is alive, and He is bringing along with Him the astonishing miracle of His yes.